Now, former Prime Minister Scott Morrison faced backlash, as you would have seen during the week, from the Australian National Imams Council after he called on Muslim leaders to embrace reforms to crack down on extremism.
Islamic leaders have a pastoral duty to protect their communities from radicalisation. And I believe most take this responsibility very seriously. However, stronger institutional frameworks would assist them, but it would also expose those who do not share their commitment.
Well, the Council's leader, Sheikh Shady, released a statement after that speech saying that associating terrorism with Islam is wrong, rejected, and has no factual or moral basis. We cannot and must not blame entire communities for the actions of a few criminal individuals. He also said that we should stop using, quote, divisive and misleading terms such as radical Islam and extremist Islam. Righto then. Now, we asked Sheikh Shady to come on the program tonight and explain all of this, but his people told my people that he wasn't doing any media appearances at the moment. How convenient. Now, my door is open, Sheikh Shady. It remains open. If you want to front up and have a serious conversation, I think they're important. I'm here for it. You've just got to give me a call. But joining me now is someone who does back Mr Morrison's proposal, Executive Council of Australian Jewry co-CEO Alex Ryvchin. Alex, thank you for joining me. Just on those statements, it's pretty extraordinary, isn't it, to say, look, it is wrong and dangerous and awful to say that this has anything to do with Islam, even radical Islam. I mean, if you can't identify what the problem is here, and as Morrison himself was trying to say during the week, I'm trying to help you guys. If you can't identify what the problem is, you don't fix it and you do yourself a disservice.
See, the trouble with the reaction, Caleb, is that when people talk about Islam, then they're denounced as Islamophobes and bigots and racists. Scott Morrison spoke in very careful, very limited terms. He spoke about the majority of the community wishing to practice their faith and benefiting from de-radicalisation because they're part of Australia and wider society. When you talk about radical Islam and extremist Islam and people who act in the spirit of those concepts, you're basically absolving the exceeding majority of Muslims from any culpability, which is exactly what I think the community and the clerics would want. You're drawing a clear distinction between the fanatics and those who live their lives in a peaceful, humane manner day in, day out. So it just shows how sensitive the entire issue is. I mean, Scott Morrison raised something. He raised a series of proposals to regulate clerics. And this is something which will be debated. I know that within my own community, there'll be a range of views from the rabbis. Some will feel it's ineffective. Some will feel it'll become too bureaucratic. But we have to have these discussions. When you've just had two men believing themselves to be acting pursuant to the Islamic faith, believing themselves to be acting according to the instructions of mentors and teachers of the Islamic faith, we have to have this discussion because lives depend on it, clearly.
Yeah, and you know, I'm sort of in that camp. I don't really know how it would work, and I worry about what it could mean for other religions as well, in terms of, is it just for Islam, or is it for others, is it self-regulated, on and on it goes. But it's opening up a discussion that needs to be had. And the fact that the Imams Council just runs away from it and says we can't even talk about it does no one any service. Just quickly, got to ask you, Alex, I'm sure you would have seen today this statement from Louise Adler, who, of course, was until very recently the director of Adelaide Writers' Week. And she's talking about, you know, what went wrong with Writers' Week and the Premier intervened, all this sort of business. But she says in amongst this statement that the Royal Commission into what happened at Bondi presents, quote, an opportunity for pro-Israel propagandists and McCarthyites. I mean, she's a Jewish woman herself, but it's an extraordinary statement.
Well, look, it doesn't surprise me that Louise Adler, under whose stewardship the Adelaide Festival just blew up, depriving dozens of Australian writers of the opportunity to share their ideas and sell their books and showcase their talents, that she's now trying to deflect and make this about her. The Royal Commission is not about Louise Adler. The Royal Commission is not about the handful of members of the Jewish community who choose to join the anti-Israel movement and turn their back on the vast majority of Australian Jews in a horrific time. It's not about them. It's about the 15 people who were slaughtered at Bondi Beach because of anti-Semitism. It's about the thousands of Australian Jews who've experienced exclusion, harassment, violence over more than 2.5 years now. That's what this is about. And it doesn't surprise me that Louise is reacting in this sort of manner because no doubt the Royal Commission will look at the festivals and they will look at the cultural scene and its contribution to a climate of dehumanisation and debasement of Jewish Australians.
But thank you very much for joining me,
Thank you,
Alex Ryvchin there.